Oh, actually, I don't think I can do that. I think that's trademarked by ESPN.
Cut that out.
Cut that part out.
Ba-dum-ba-dum.
Yeah, so we are here. And it's a podcast. And, oh my
Jeez
gosh.
Louise, move the phones.
Move the phones. Turn them on silent. We are 20 seconds into this, and we are doing awful.
All right, let's get our elbow deep.
What? Elbow deep? We are back from our hiatus. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Hiatus. We moved. We got a dog. We screen printed, and now we are here. Shabam.
Screen printed in the garage.
Shabam. That's for another time. Bam. Okay. This is going to be an actual podcast.
Our other ones aren't?
Yeah, I got to thinking after I said that that's not really a true statement because we've done other ones. So, what I mean by that is this is going to be an actual podcast where we talk about something that we've actually planned out. Because I think the other ones we've kind of done by the seat of our pants.
A little bit.
For the most part.
I usually have to have something planned.
Yes, because I don't usually plan very good.
Well.
Gooder. More gooder. Okay, so let's talk about from start to finish what all is required to do a complete launch. How we go about planning what designs, garments, all that stuff. Little insight, we have been in operation for a year now.
Wow.
Last July was when we trademarked and started everything as a business. Look at that. So, we are about a year into this whole startup of a hand-printed clothing line. Do you have any? I didn't work on the elevator speech. So, yeah, there's about what we are. We don't really know what we're doing all that much, but we're kind of figuring it out.
Don't say that. We know what we're doing.
We kind of don't.
You gotta pitch it better than that for an elevator speech. You can't say, I don't know what I'm doing. They're not gonna buy it.
I'm not selling it. So, bringing it back. That's, there's our background, so bullet point number 1,
Or
done.
Thereof.
Yeah, okay, so the very first thing that we do when we've decided that we're going to launch a new product, which we already kind of have our timeline based out for the next 3 launches. So as of right now, July 2017, we do 1 release every other month.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Yep.
See. So the very first thing that we do is we figure out what we're going to do. We figure out what kind of garment we're going to make.
Yeah, whether it's a tank top, a t-shirt, 3/4 sweatshirt, eventually maybe we'll be able to do sweatpants and that kind of stuff too. So we basically determine what we're going to print on.
Yeah, so as a startup, obviously we're limited by our buying power. So, we can't buy huge amounts or custom amounts or custom clothing or anything really crazy. So we're kind of limited to what we can do right now. We're kind of just printing on whatever we can get our hands on, but we've got a general idea of the theme and kind of what we want to pair together. So once we make that first step and we say, okay, this release we're going to be doing t-shirts. We come to that conclusion by basically listening to you guys. We get people asking us for either a tank top or a t-shirt or what have you. We get requests all the time. So we're going to take that into consideration. And I think that's a huge point, is actually listening to the people who are basically giving you the oxygen to breathe. Without you guys, we wouldn't even have a line to sell. So obviously we're going to put some weight into what the general public wants.
Right, so it helps when we get suggestions because
Absolutely.
our last release was tank tops, but even now we're getting more requests for tank tops. They want the design that was on the girls' tank tops on a guy tank top, and so it's that's something that we're going to try and incorporate possibly into our next release after these t-shirts come out. Because we did have some people asking for t-shirts. And we wanted to kind of see if we could do t-shirts again, but do them better than we did the first time. Just to see how well they go.
So our first ever release was t-shirts. Very basic, way too over the top in hindsight.
In quantity.
In quantity. and in the number of shirts.
Yeah.
So I kind of got, yeah, that is quantity, isn't it? So I got buried on that because I made the mistake of thinking that this was going to. I made the mistake of thinking that we were going to produce numbers, sales-wise, of what other companies were already doing who've been in business for 5, 6, 7 years. So our very first release, I got buried under shirts, which we still have, and we've kind of turned that negative into a learning curve, so there's a lot that we've improved since that very first release, but quantity-wise, we still have a lot of those shirts that we are kind of giving away as freebies and just kind of capitalizing on.
Right.
But yeah, that was kind of the thought process behind doing t-shirts right now. One of the key points for that was that these are much higher quality, the ink is much higher quality, the shirt is just overall better, they won't wash out.
The design is better.
The designs are better. They're just an overall much, much better t-shirt than our first release. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say our first release was garbage. One of our best-selling shirts, one of our best-selling garments to this date came out of that first release. So it wasn't all a complete loss, but there were definitely points that we need to capitalize on.
Right. But once we pick those shirts, we basically base the colors of the shirts that we're going to get off of what's available to us. Because like Alex said, we have some limited, availability of what we're able to buy right now, and so we kind of get our options from from our distributor, mm-hmm. and then after that we basically decide what color ink we want to put on them. Typically, currently we've just used like black and white. You used some different colors on the first release. But since we changed inks, we've used black and white for the most part. Mm-hmm. We'll expand that eventually as we get more comfortable with stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And really at this point, the ink color isn't a big deal.
No.
It's more of, it is another expense.
Yeah, and it's what we want in our design right now. If we don't plan a design with color as our ink, we're not going to order an ink that's,
right.
Lime green if we're not going to do it on a shirt,
So as a startup, obviously that is going to be one of your limiting factors. If you are a startup brand listening to this right now, your biggest limiting factor is probably going to be money and how much capital you can put into each release. And every little thing adds up, from the inks to how many colors to screens to all that. Even if you're not going to do it yourself, if you're going through somebody else and you want to do some funky custom Pantone color, it's going to cost you more than doing your standard orange or your standard white or your standard blue.
Right.
There's just more effort that goes into it. So once we've got the garments picked out, we've got our colors picked out, we know what we're doing. The next thing is basically to determine what's going to go on the shirt and basically mock it up.
Yep, and we usually have at least a few ideas in our pocket. We don't always start from scratch with every single release. Sometimes it's designs that we've previewed to people before. Sometimes, because we did get good feedback on them, but maybe we have a few new ones we want to throw in the mix. We just want to make sure, we have one that everybody's going to like. So whether it's something that we've already shown people or brand new ones, we usually roll a few of them out, just get a good amount of feedback and really compare the stuff that we have.
Yeah, and if another tip for you guys, if I'm trying to think of, if I came to this podcast and I was looking for answers, I'm trying to provide that. So a big key that I would give you would be to have a bank of ideas. Stuff that you've either shown people or stuff that you just kind of have in the back of your mind, whether it's just a pencil sketch or it's an actual mock-up that you've already done on an Illustrator or anything like that. It's good to have just a bank of ideas. So you can either go to them and pull different ideas from different ones, or just roll with some of them. But that bank is huge. That saves a lot of scrambling around when it gets down to crunch time.
Yeah, especially if you have old ones that are good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if, they didn't get the best feedback because they weren't the best in your lot last time, if there's still a solid idea, you might just need a different combination to use that one or something like that. So
absolutely.
We usually make up a little video, post it to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. and kind of ask for people's feedback on what designs they like the best. And we usually roll out between like 5 and probably 8 different designs.
Yeah, and initially we've probably got somewhere close to 15, and between Laura and I, we narrow that list down to our top 5 to 7 and say these are our favorites, and we kind of pocket the rest of them and say maybe we'll use these, maybe we won't.
And we don't try to limit it too much, just because like if we're down to 5 and one of us comes up with a really good one, we're like, you know what, throw it in there. Someone else might really like that. That might be the winner. So we're not going to say, we don't want to overwhelm people, but we don't want to provide them with 3 options and none of them are as good as they could be, And
it also comes down to what your brand is doing. For us, we're only releasing 1 or 2 t-shirts right now, or our garments, I should say, per release. So we try to keep the design unique, and we try not to repeat things that we've already done. We may do another Shatter Expectations t-shirt like we did with the women's tank, but we switched it up from what the initial design was. So we made small tweaks to it, but we try to come up with unique ideas, because it doesn't matter how much marketing you do, how much money you dump into a Facebook ad or an Instagram post. If you have garbage ideas, it's not going to sell. At the end of the day, you've got to design something that's either eye-catching or stands for something more than just being on a t-shirt. There's got to be a reason for someone to buy it.
Right. And some of our designs, if we have a couple extra, like we had a few that we wanted to throw on the backs, and we knew they were for the backs, so that's why sometimes we have ties between them, and it actually works out best for us because we actually have a front and a back idea, and if they're both, are top voted on designs, it's like, well, that makes it super easy. That's what we're gonna do.
Absolutely.
And so what you have to consider those variables as well. If you're gonna have 2 different designs on a shirt, but front, back, or front and sleeve or whatever, consider that as well. You don't necessarily have to tell people this is just for the sleeve or anything like that. Can if you want to, but.
And if you do what we do, if you put a video out of all your designs, you will get feedback from people that say, oh, that would look cool on a sleeve, or that would look cool if that was a full chest print, or I like that on the back. They will give you that feedback, but you've got to ask for it, and you've got to give them a platform where they feel comfortable enough to say something back to you.
Yeah, and definitely embrace the criticism. It's constructive. It's something that is like, hey, tweak this, tweak that, or, that one's really solid. Like, whether it's good or bad, it helps you learn and it helps you see what people are drawn to, and that actually helps you develop your designs for the next time, which helps it get better, which is what we're finding.
Yes.
I think every single release we've had, our designs have gotten stronger, and it's because of the feedback that we're getting. Like,
I agree.
We can easily look at something and say, I don't think people are going to like that, just based off of what we've shown them before. And it can actually help us eliminate things or just fix them or improve them in a way that it's going to be better, and we're going to get better feedback on it.
Yeah, and it's actually, the landscape for us is changing a little bit, because we don't necessarily, as our brand starts to pick up steam and we start to get a little bit more momentum, our releases are starting to come quicker and quicker and quicker. So from start to finish, it takes us right now roughly 2 months. From design concept to when we've set that sell date.
And that's pretty generous. I feel like we've given ourselves 2 months because this is the first time that we tried to do it every 2 months. Like, this is our first planned out release, and we're doing pretty well. It doesn't mean that we couldn't make it faster eventually as we get more comfortable with it.
Absolutely. So there's that part, and the other key is this: we are both working a 9 to 5 right now. We both have jobs that take us away for a minimum of 8 hours a day. That we are not here. We cannot. We just can't put in the work for those 8 hours a day, which is fine. That's okay. That's how it has to be right now. But that is a limiting factor for us. But this time around, it's a little bit different, because the day that we release these t-shirts, July 19th, we have to have designs picked out for our next launch for our 3/4 sleeves and tank top. So we've got to have that in mind. So that doesn't give us time to poll people. We can't put out a video. We could, but I don't like the idea of putting out a video and saying which one of these designs are your favorite, and getting people already concerned about September's release when they haven't even seen July's release yet.
Right. Yep.
So it's going to be a little bit different. We don't have all the answers. Like I said, we've been in business for a year, and really we've only had probably one, maybe two solid, very well planned out launches. So we are. This is not a guru answer for you. This is just what we have found so far. So basically, once we've got all that figured out, we've got our garment picked, we've got our prints, we've got our colors. The process of actually making the shirts begins. And this is where it's going to vary quite a bit from company to company. If you are like us and you hand print everything yourself and do everything in-house, then you've got a lot on your plate. If you're someone who ships out all your work and has someone else print it and do that, that's good. And all you have to really do is sign off on the samples and all that. But we're going to talk about our experience. I can't speak to that side because I've never been on that side. I've never outsourced to other people before. We do everything ourselves. So the very first thing we have to do is make sure that we have everything we need, which we did not do a good job of this time. And by we, I mean Alex. So basically, we got to figure out what we need to buy. Whether that's we need more screens, or we need different inks, or we need more chemicals, or squeegees, or shirts. Like, that all has to happen first. That's the first thing that happens because that's where the longest lead time is at.
Yeah, because we can place an order and we can wait, we might have to wait a whole week to get that, but if we place that order fast enough, we can be working on other things that we, have already, like burning screens and prepping screens and stuff, but we want to make sure that we're ahead of the game on our order side as well.
So once we've got all of our supplies and our little stuff on order, that's really when this is when a bulk of the actual hands-on and my favorite part of the work begins. I love doing the hands-on stuff. I will do the design stuff and the marketing stuff all day long because I really enjoy that, but by far my favorite part is printing the shirts. So we'll just walk you through the actual process of what we do. And the very first thing we do is we print the transparencies. And basically what a transparency is if you remember back in grade school, you remember those big overhead projectors and the teacher would put like a black thing on there and it'd project up on the wall, like before they had like digital projector things? Yeah, I'm old, I know.
Digital projector things.
Hey, listen. I'm dated. That's what transparency is. It's basically just a black outline of what your design is.
It's like if you print something on paper, but you're printing it on a clear piece of paper and all the ink shows up black. That's what it is.
Yes. And basically what that is that's your design. You make a transparency of where you want ink on the shirt. So if we're going to be doing our logo, we are going to have just our logo in black on a transparency, a clear sheet of paper. And we've got a special printer that does that for us. And we basically mark it up, put it at the right dimensions that we want it on the shirt, and print her out.
We make sure we have the right screen size for how big we want our design. And then we basically start prepping that screen by cleaning it first with a degreaser. And then as soon as that dries, Alex can coat it with the emulsion. And then as soon as that dries, we're able to take that transparency and burn our image into that screen. And then he's able to wash that out. And then as soon as that dries, we can start printing.
Yeah, okay, so we'll back up. Back up to the prep screen
part. That was like
part.
the overhead.
That was the overview.
You can do the detail. Because
if
you talk through it all, I don't talk at all.
Yeah, we can't have that. All right, we'll clean some of that up. Back to the prepping screens. What we do is basically just a general cleaner. Any dirt, grime, old ink, anything like that, we basically just scrub the screen clean, and that's all the degreaser is. It's basically just cleaning it out. After that, we coat it with what she called an emulsion, and basically an emulsion is just a light-sensitive kind of ink, I guess. It's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah, it's almost like a coating that you put on the screen. It shows up on it red. You have to do it in a dark room. We've got footage of doing that before. We use a red light bulb, and that makes it light safe because it's the UV lights that will actually affect that emulsion. So we can't let it get exposed to normal lighting, or else it won't actually accept the burned image. Right,
because all we are trying to set is that transparency. We only want the screen to wash out where we want ink at. If we set that light sensitive material on there and get other light in there, it basically hardens it, and we can't do anything with it.
Right.
So if the easiest way I think about it is it's like a stencil. That transparency on there, when you expose it to light, it creates a stencil. And you wash out. We basically take it to the tub and we wash out the part the ink part, the part that was black on the transparency, and that goes away. And we're left with basically a stencil that we push ink through to get it on a shirt. Now we're back to where you were. Continue. We burn the screens.
Oh.
You can go through like the next 5 points and I'll clean up anything.
So we burn the screens and then we basically let those dry, and then we set them up on the press, and we make sure that we have everything lined up and like our off contact, so how far the screen is off of where we put the shirts, so that way the print releases correctly from the screen. And then once we get that set up, we run some test prints just to make sure everything's coming out correctly and at the quality that we want. And then we usually start working on the actual shirts, so that way the designs come out correctly, and then we clean everything up, and
that's about it for the actual printing part of it. That's it. That's the last step.
Yeah, he uses a heat press to cure the ink and then that kind of stuff. I mean, there are certain things. The ink is, if it gets everywhere.
It gets dumped. Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
It gets everywhere.
So you have to cure it for a certain amount of time, because or else it'll stay sticky and it'll just get everywhere. So he's got a heat press that he does that with, and then clean it up. Once they're all done, we can fold them. We take an inventory of them.
All right, cutting you off there. All right, back to when we are test printing the shirts. So she explained it a little bit, the off contact. The easiest way to think about that is a screen acts like a trampoline. So when I first started printing, I assumed that the screen sat on top of the shirt and you just smashed ink through that stencil as hard as you could and just bash it down to the fibers. That's wrong. I was wrong, and it doesn't work very well. So the easiest way to think about it is it's like a trampoline. You don't want your screen touching the shirt. You want to actually have a gap in there. So when you run that squeegee over the top of it, the ink goes down, touches the shirt, and then the screen actually pops up after you move your squeegee past it. So it's more of a trampoline effect where the ink touches it, sticks to the shirt, and your screen comes back up. This is so much easier with hand gestures. This makes so much sense, but I can't do hand gestures on a podcast.
I think it makes sense, though.
Okay. And then back to what she called a heat press, which is technically not the right name.
Sorry, I never remember what it's called.
Basically, all it is a heater. A heat press is a different process for printing shirts. But we print with a plastisol ink, which means that it has plastic in it, as opposed to like a water-based. A water-based ink, you only have to dry it until the water evaporates out of it. With a plastisol ink, you actually have to cure it. And there is a massive difference between curing and drying, which I also learned the hard way. Drying it does not mean that the ink will not come off when you wash it. Drying it means that it is dry to the touch, but if the second you put any water on it in a washer and a dryer, that ink comes right off and it looks like you didn't even put anything on it. Curing it happens when you cure the ink all the way from the top level to the bottom level of the ink that you just put on that shirt. So basically that happens at plastisol inks. It's different for different colors, but generally it's at 320 degrees. So we cure the ink, we take it off, we've got a finished product, and we rinse and repeat that until we're done with the whole order. But 9 times out of 10 we've got a front and a back print. Well, I should say 10 out of 10 because we've never done a release with just one-sided.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 times we have a front and a back print. So that means we run through everything once for the back and we run through everything again for the front. And after that, she basically summed it up for us. We just clean the screens off, save as much ink as we can on the screens, and then we reclaim them. So we've got basically another chemical that we can spray on it and take all that emulsion and everything off of the screen. That way we can reuse the screen and we don't have to spend another $20 on buying another screen. So that takes us to now we've got the finished product.
So basically, we're gonna fold those up. We take a full inventory of that. We will basically upload that inventory to our website so that way we can automatically track that. Every once in a while, we'll go back through after we've gotten sales or we've given some shirts away or whatever, and we re-inventory just to make sure we're on point with that.
Just a spot check, because since we don't have the option of making more shirts, we need to make sure our numbers are spot on.
Yeah.
Because if our inventory is off on the high side, someone could actually buy a t-shirt that we do not have in stock.
Yeah.
And that's not a road I'm trying to go down.
Nope. But once we do that, we usually go out and take a photo shoot. So usually it's just Alex and I. I think eventually we're definitely going to try and get more people involved, whether it's
I would love to have more people involved.
Like that we're related to, or friends of ours, or just anybody really. Because we've had a couple times where we've just posted them on Instagram and stuff, but we have people that have purchased shirts before send us photos of them in their shirts, and we've used those before if they've given us permission. So we do some photo shoots, and then we upload those to the site, and then we make sure we're all set up for the release. We give out that date, and then we make sure everything's scheduled to go live for that day. So that way, at the time that we, say, okay, it's all there, it'll all be set up, and it'll all look really great, and it all works.
And then we just package orders as they come in.
Yeah.
And that takes about 2 months. And then we start over again.
Right.
Right back from the top. So all in all, it does sound like a lot of work, and quite frankly it is. But
yeah,
it makes it so much easier when you actually enjoy it.
Yeah, it does. And it helps a lot that we went through and we planned it out this time.
Yes.
We literally assigned dates to all the different steps, and then it's actually helped it go smoother. Because our tank release, I don't remember how long that timeline was, but it was
a long time.
Definitely not as fast as this one has been.
Yes.
And we've even, we've moved. And we've gotten a dog, and we were out of Wi-Fi for almost 2 weeks, and all this stuff. So it's like, even though we had all those hiccups, this is still on track and gone smoother than any of the releases we've had lately.
It is on track. When she says that, today is actually the last day for us to print. So earlier when I said I had a hiccup, I actually didn't inventory my white ink, so we kind of had a scare on Thursday when we realized we had no white ink and like 70 more prints to go.
Yeah.
So we got that in. Luckily, it came in quickly.
It did come in quickly, and we kind of gave ourselves a generous amount of time. Even though it is 2 months, and that's faster than any release we've done, we tried to kind of budget our time for certain aspects well.
Yes.
Because we kind of knew that things would get a little bit funky places, just because that's the nature of the game. So we wanted to make sure we didn't cut ourselves too short on time.
Exactly.
So I think we're still good. We're going to be able to finish stuff tonight if we can get it all figured out.
That's the game plan.
And then go from there.
Quiz time. So what happens after we finish production tonight?
Photo shoots and inventory.
Wrong. You even said it, and that wasn't even directing the question towards you. What? No, after we finish production, we clean and reclaim the screens.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh, my team is falling apart.
I just focus on the things that I do. I take photos.
I don't care what you do.
Not my problem. Not my circus. Not my monkey.
Well, that's weird.
Actually, this is my circus and it is my monkey. So
why you gotta look at me when you say that? All right, there's our podcast. If you came here and have no idea who we are, I hope this at least gave you a little bit of an insight into what you can expect for a release if you own your own clothing line or you're thinking about getting into this. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I married a child.
Excuse me?
But that's about it. That's all I got. So, yeah.
We got shirts to print.
And I appreciate... Whoa, okay. I won't cut you off that hard. But I do appreciate you guys listening. It really does mean a lot. I hope you learned something, and we will be back. But right now, we've kind of got some shirts to print because we are almost behind schedule.
All right.
So, peace out, friends.
Deuces.